in my back pocket. Hello, I'm Anna Coren, coming to you from Yuen Long in Hong Kong. We are in the 20th consecutive week of protests. And the reason we are here in Yuen Long tonight is because this is the 3rd anniversary of those brutal attacks in the MTR station, the train station, where at least 45 people were bashed by men dressed in white shirts, many of them believed to be triads. So protesters have been turning out here on the month anniversary really to come out in their numbers. Now, the numbers tonight have been sporadic. As you can see, there are riot police that have dispersed the crowds. Earlier, they had blocked off this intersection. On that side of the road, there were clashes between protesters and pro-Chinese supporters. And you have to remember, here in Yuen Long, we are in the northwest of Hong Kong, very close to the Chinese border. So there is a real mainland influence and a lot of mainland supporters. Hence that attack 3 months ago when those mobs, and we're talking about dozens of men, turned out after protesters had returned from demonstrating on Hong Kong Island in Central, and they came home on the MTR, and these mobs of men, there were dozens of them dressed in white, carrying metal poles and canes, started bashing protesters and also general commuters. It was extremely distressing, the footage. 45 people were injured. Only 6 people were charged after those horrific attacks. And people here, many people here, believe that the police were turning a blind eye to the violence. It took the police some 45 minutes to respond to those brutal attacks. So many people here believe that the police were working with those organized gangs, which is what some of those people who were charged were found to be a part of. But as you can see, this is an intersection where the riot police are wanting to really clear the streets. And beforehand, there were hundreds of protesters. These protesters have taken on these guerrilla-type tactics. We have seen street battles. Yesterday, I was in Mongkok and they were running street battles for hours on end. Tonight we are seeing more guerrilla tactics where protesters will block roads, they will lay barricades, then the riot police will come and they will see the sirens, they will see the vans, and the protesters just vanish. But I'm asking you who are watching this to please send in some questions. We really want to answer your questions about what is going on here in Hong Kong. This is now 4 months in, and many people are just perplexed as to how this could happen in one of the biggest financial centres in the world. How is it that people take out to the streets in their thousands, their tens of thousands? Yesterday there was more than 100,000 people taking to the streets to march in what is an unlawful march. It was unauthorised by police, but they are taking to the streets. They are wearing face masks when we know that there is a face mask ban that was brought in earlier this month to help police arrest. And I should mention too that more than 2,700 people have now been arrested. It really is quite extraordinary. But please send in your questions. I hope that we can answer some of them. I now want to introduce you to somebody. She's a protester. She's actually tucked away behind the crowds and the building because she doesn't want to wear her face mask in front of the police. So we're just going to go through the crowds and speak to her. But she is from Yuen Long and she is very concerned about what is happening. And as you can see, there are just so many people here, so many local residents just watching the spectacle. So many people very concerned about what is taking place. Many of them, I'm sure, who are protesters, but who don't want to wear face masks because they're not allowed. Now I'm going to ask this particular protester, why do you turn out? Why do you come to the protests?
I come for Hong Kong. I come for the place where I live and where I born. Yeah. So I just want to come here to protest my place and my future.
You are from Yuen Long, and obviously what happened 3 months ago at the train station was a new low for Hong Kong. The violence was extraordinary. The terror that those people experienced on the trains was just terrifying. And it wasn't just protests; it was also everyday commuters who were caught up in it. Tell me, what was it like living here, knowing that had happened at your local train station?
Actually, I haven't checked the MTR for a long period already, especially since the 21st of July, and because they just cooperate with the Hong Kong police to let the Hong Kong police to attack the Hong Kong residents.
So you're talking about the triads, the organised crime gangs, many of them who live up here in this part of Hong
Yes.
Kong. We are so close to the mainland border.
Like the MTR, the police, and the gangster, they are all on the same team to attack the Hong Kong residents.
Well, I think it's really worth noting that there was video footage taken of riot police on that night, on the 21st of July, who were seen talking with masked men dressed in white and patting them on the back. There was that footage that was shown around the world.
Sorry, pardon.
Just it showed that the riot police knew some of these people who had attacked the
Yes.
protesters and the commuters.
Yeah, you mean the Hong Kong police?
That there was the accusation that they were working together, that the police and the triads were working together. Is that your fear? Is that your concern?
Yeah, for sure. And because actually I'm a resident who live in the village, and
You come from a village where the triads come from.
yes, one of the village,
One of the
because they
villages.
come from like various villages.
Many villages.
Yeah, and I was born in Yuen Long, and so-called like indigenous resident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was born here, but I'm totally not one of that kind of team.
Of course.
Yeah.
You turn out to the protests, and obviously this is an unlawful gathering tonight. There is a face mask ban that is implemented. You could be arrested for just wearing this face mask. Why do you come out to the protests?
Because the law is totally not make sense, and I put on the mask to protest myself, and that is my right to do this kind of thing, and the law is totally insane. So I come here to tell them that I totally disagree with the law.
And tell me what you are fighting for. This began with a fight against the extradition bill, which has now been formally withdrawn. So tell me, what is it that you are fighting for?
Actually, I don't think that is formally being withdrawn, because she just told us that she will suggest to withdraw the law.
But what is it that you are turning out to fight for? Because Carrie Lam, the city's chief executive, has formally withdrawn the bill. She has said that publicly. So why do you keep on coming out to the streets and protesting?
Because we have 5 demands, but not only that one. We at the first, at the beginning, our demand is only to withdraw the law. But after all this day, we can see how insane is the police and how insane is the government. So we have 5 demands. And
5 demands, those being that there is an independent inquiry into the police. There is an independent investigation into police brutality, that the police force get disbanded, that the people who've been arrested, and there's more than 2,600, more than 2,700 of them who've been arrested, to be released, for the rioting claim to be revoked.
yes.
And I mean, and universal suffrage, obviously that's a big thing. People are fighting for universal suffrage.
Sorry, I can't
I
really
know.
hear that.
Well, we're going to leave you. Thank you very much for speaking to us. We really appreciate your bravery
Thank you
and
so
talking
much
us
to
through.
be here.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as you can see, these are just everyday people, residents of Yuen Long, taking to the streets and yelling at the police, claiming that the police have acted with brutality and aggressive tactics, and that is why an independent inquiry needs to be set up. Now, I now want to answer some of the questions that you have asked. Okay, So this is from Gregory Pierce. What do the protesters hope to gain and what is their exit strategy? Yeah, good question, Gregory. What is their exit strategy? We don't really know, other than that these kids want their freedom. They've lived with freedoms for the last 22 years after the British handed back Hong Kong to mainland China, and Hong Kong has been operating under the one country, two systems policy. But the people of Hong Kong feel that China is encroaching on their civil liberties. They feel that their freedoms are being eroded. They feel that China is cracking down on the way that people live, and they don't want to be part of China. Now, people say, well, Hong Kong, it's a special administrative region of China. It is part of China. Well, these people who are protesting, they don't want to be part of China, and that is what they are fighting against. As for their exit strategy, some of the kids that I've spoken to over the past 4 months say that they would rather die than live under China. We know that there have been a number of suicides of protesters who have taken their own lives, which is obviously the ultimate sacrifice, and obviously all authorities and protest organisers are encouraging children not to take such drastic measures. And I say children because they are. They're in their 20s. They're students. They're kids who are getting degrees, and yet they feel such desperation, such despair, a real sense of hopelessness, and they feel that if they don't take to the streets, they are not doing their part in Hong Kong's future. Okay, I'm now going to ask for the phone, and let's answer another question. Nelson says, how is the economy of Hong Kong holding up? Well, the problem is that Hong Kong is really suffering. The economy is really suffering. We know that the tourism industry, people don't want to come to Hong Kong because this is now the norm. This is what people are seeing on the streets. You're talking about riot police carrying guns, carrying rounds of tear gas. They've got their guns that fire rubber bullets, and we know that there've been 2 protesters who've already been shot by police. We also have to mention there has been a real uptick in the violence here in Hong Kong in these clashes. Police have been brutally attacked. Obviously the vandalism, the trashing of shops seem to be pro-Beijing, pro-China. They get trashed. The MTR station, the train system here, that has also been targeted over and over again. Firebombs are thrown into the MTR station. So many of them closed. In fact, tonight, people couldn't travel on the MTR here to Yuen Long because they were anticipating huge crowds, so they wanted to stop that. They closed the trains very, very early, trying to limit the number of people. But they still turn out. They still turn out in their hundreds, and so many of them tonight. And you can see, like behind us, if Brad, our cameraman, can just show you, there are still lots of people, lots of local residents, lots of folks who aren't necessarily wearing their face masks. Some are wearing face masks, defying police orders. So we've got a question from Melissa. She's asking that protests have turned violent. How will China respond? Well, that is the million-dollar question. There was obviously concern that the troops would roll in, the tanks would roll in, but in actual fact, that hasn't happened. We haven't seen the mainland Chinese military here in Hong Kong, and yet the garrison here in Hong Kong for the PLA, the Chinese military, we believe they have bolstered the numbers there. We have seen there have been videos made by the PLA showing their troops just across the border in Shenzhen carrying out rioting exercises. So look, the threat is there, the concern is there. Many people have spoken about the fact that China could come in, but Carrie Lam, the city's chief executive, has said that the Hong Kong police have this under control, that it is their job to handle the situation, but the option is there that if this gets out of hand, she can call upon China to step in. And we heard from the Chinese President Xi Jinping not such a long time ago where he said any act of separatism will be crushed. But thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for your participation. We are here in Yuen Long, where protesters have turned out for the 3rd anniversary of those brutal attacks at the train station. Please keep on watching CNN and tune in a little bit later for any more updates on the protests here in Hong Kong. Thanks so much for watching.